Man, like you break the top 100 at 30. And when I did it, I had plantar fascia. I had just won a tournament in Mexico, got me to 100 in the world, got me main draw to Wimbledon. First time I'd ever been main draw without qualifying. Like this is the pinnacle. And I had plantar fasciitis in both feet. Like I couldn't even celebrate being top 100 because I was freaking hurt again.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You podcast. My name is Nick Carrier, body optimization coach and creator of the 10-Week Transformation. The mission of this show is to help you get closer to your best you in all areas of your life every single day. In today's episode, we have Jeff Salzenstein. Jeff is a former top 100 tennis pro turned performance coach who now helps entrepreneurs and high achievers master their health, mindset, and leadership. During this episode, we're going to discuss Jeff's career. We're going to talk about how he had such high expectations for his career, having been a captain on a Stanford tennis team. And we talk about how he made a major breakthrough in his performance. We talk about momentum, about how to get it, how to keep from losing it, and then if you did lose it, how to regain it back. For now, it's time to get closer to your best you. Let's dive in. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. I am super excited to be joined by the one and only Jeff Salzenstein. Jeff, I am really excited to be joined with you. You know, we have a mutual friend who connected us, and the mutual friend who connected us is somebody whose opinion and just personality and just as a human being, I respect him a lot. And so I know this is going to be a great conversation and whatnot. But you're a leadership speaker, performance coach, former top 100 tennis player in the world, and entrepreneur. And so we're going to get some high-level insights on performance, on leadership, some good stories probably as well. So really excited to dive in today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's not every day that you get introduced as the one and only. So I will receive that. It is true. I am the one and only.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I would assume so. I would assume so. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think that one of the things that I'm most interested in, just to start off, is a little bit of a kind of your tennis career and trajectory. When did you feel like, I know you had a lot of success in high school with tennis, and then obviously you went to Stanford to play tennis. Was there ever a moment or a period of time where you started to believe that this could turn into a career?
Absolutely. You know, I usually start podcasts or even my keynotes and workshops around kind of my signature story around playing Michael Chang at the US Open, but we're not going to start there today because
No.
of the question you asked.
Let's go back to the beginning, baby.
We're gonna start still in the middle of the story, but we're gonna start when the moment I realized I had a shot at this thing.
Okay.
And the way this unfolded was I play my freshman year at Stanford, which we can also go back in time and figure out how the heck did a kid from Colorado, a ski state, actually get to Stanford to play tennis. That's kind of a crazy one. But I play my freshman year at Stanford. I'm playing number 5 singles. I go 22-4 that year. So I'm winning. You know, I'm finding ways to win, but I'm playing number 5 singles. In tennis, the top 6 players in college play in the starting lineup. But if you're
Okay.
playing number 5, even on Stanford, which is top in the country, you're not going to go pro. You got to be playing 1 or 2 or maybe 3. Okay. So I'm playing 5 singles and I go 22-4. But what people don't know, unless they're on the inside, I had the worst serve in college tennis. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but imagine you're a baseball pitcher and you're on your college team and your top end speed is 82 miles an hour. You're not going to the big leagues at 82 or 85. Okay. You got to throw cheese. And so in tennis, I got the worst serve in college tennis. I'm double faulting. I'm spinning it in. I can't break 100 miles an hour as a 19-year-old. Again, to give context, guys like Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner now, these guys were serving 120 miles an hour when they were 19. Okay.
Mm.
So I play my freshman year. I go play in these low-level satellite tournaments. Again, imagine single A baseball. Like it is like the lowest level, maybe not even single A. You're kind of like, especially qualifying, you're playing like a independent league almost. And I go and I cannot qualify out of these low-level pro tournaments. So if you're 19 years old, you're not qualifying and you have a crappy serve, you're going to get a day job when you graduate from college. That's what's going to happen. So I'm not qualifying. And at this point, there was a fork in the road. Everyone was going to go play for another month at pro tournaments before the college season, before the school year started. And I was like, you know what? This makes no sense. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and again and expecting different results. So I go back to Denver, which is not where you play in the summer. And I'm watching Wimbledon that year. There's this guy named Goran Ivanisevic. He won Wimbledon several years later. He's a lefty. He's from Croatia. He serves 125 or 130 miles an hour. He's got this big serve, kind of a funky motion. And I'm watching him at Wimbledon play on TV because we didn't have YouTube back then. We didn't have video analysis. There weren't coaches breaking down the serve. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out on the court and I'm just going to model him. I'm going to copy his serve, his version of the serve. So I take a hopper of balls out to the Denver Tennis Club, and I start tweaking and experimenting. And kind of like magic, something clicked. And I was like, oh, I'm on to something. So the entire summer, I was working on this serve. At the same time, I grew a few inches, which is not normal at 19 to grow 2 or 3 inches. I put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle and I changed my serve. And I added 20 miles an hour to my serve that summer. So I
Wow.
go back to college that fall, my sophomore year, and the coach took one look at my serve and he was like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "I just copied Goran." And he's like, "Well, you're playing number two singles this year because now you're a serve and volleyer. Now you are a player." And it was at that moment in my career, I got kind of chills thinking about it. It was like, holy cow, I just transcended. I just transformed. I just did something within myself that is very rare. And now I have a shot. And before
Totally.
I had no shot. That one event in time where I changed the trajectory of my life changed my life because now I go play pro tennis instead of getting a real job.
Yeah, totally. Do you feel like what percentage would you attribute your going from 5 to 2 singles? Would you attribute to the 2 inches higher that you or 2 inches you gained in height, or the change in serve style? Like did the or like and you increase your serve by 20 miles per hour. How much was that because you grew and you got bigger versus the change in style?
I think it's a combination of both. I do think it was more heavily weighted towards the change in technique, only because I feel like if I would have grown 2 inches and just kind of kept the mentality and the way I was serving, it wouldn't have made as much impact. Certainly,
Yeah.
the physical helped, but I do think it was this shift in how I approach my serve, the motion. There's power in modeling. Tony Robbins talks about it. Others talk about like find people or teams that are doing what you want to do and go find what their secret is. And I was doing this intuitively without knowing what I was doing, and just copying the best in the world allows you to uncover something. And so I do think it was more of that discovery of that other player, Goran. But certainly the physical part helped. I was a late bloomer. I've always been a late bloomer. And there's a testament to that because I knew how to win without a big serve.
Yeah.
And then add in a big serve. It's kind of like Andy Roddick. Andy Roddick was 14 years old. He had a bad serve. He was kind of a grinder. And one day he got pissed off and he tossed the ball and he hit it as hard as he could and it went in. And he was like, oh. And then his serve changed. And then he goes on to win the US Open and be number one in the world with an accident, almost an accidental thing that happened. And that was similar to me. I call it an accidental transformation. I'm probably not giving myself enough credit because there was thought around it. It was like, I'm not going to play these pro tournaments. I'm going to go change. I'm not going to follow the herd. I'm not going to follow the flock. I'm going to follow my own path because I know I need to get better. And I think that takes curiosity, openness, innovation, that really applies even to what I'm doing now, helping leaders think in a different way.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a few lessons there, and then we'll move on. It's the modeling thing, like find what other successful people are doing that you want to do, and find some way, shape, or form to model. There's a difference between modeling and copying, and it depends what kind of example you're actually talking about. But that's one. I love what you said there. Of you had this weakness of serving, and so that required you to grow strengths elsewhere, so that when you picked up on your weakness or when you improved your weakness, then you were even that much better. So that's a great lesson. And then I think the last part is like what gets you here won't always get you there. Like you can't keep doing the same thing. Sometimes you have to experiment and try different things. And so just because you reached a level of success, which was a good level of success, right? Like you were on the starting lineup at Stanford tennis, which is a huge level of success in that sport. Just because you made it there isn't like, I'm not going to try anything new. I've made it already this far. I can make it further. It's like, you got to be willing to experiment with some new things. So that's great. I'm curious. I'm always somebody who played team sports. I played football. I played baseball. I did wrestling for a couple of years when I was younger, but for the most part, I always played team sports. So kind of like two sides of the coin. What do you feel like playing the individual sport of tennis gave you as far as good lessons of individual sports? And then on the other side, what do you feel like playing an individual sport your whole life didn't provide you that maybe team sports would?
Yeah. I was just speaking about this with another speaker an hour ago, and this woman is absolutely obsessed with tennis now later in her life. And she was telling me without me saying anything, she's like, I watch these guys at and gals, but like at the French Open, Alcaraz and Sinner, and then at Wimbledon. She's like, your sport is insane. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You've got to play 5 sets for 5 hours. You have to do it day after day. You're traveling around the world playing these tournaments. There is no teammate on the court with you if you're playing singles. There
Yeah.
is no coach. Hey, let's sub out. You're having a game. You're 6 for 24 shooting. We're gonna bench you, let you watch a little bit, or you're a quarterback and you're stinking it up. You've thrown 3 interceptions. Let's just pull you out, left tackle, whatever it is. It's you every single point and you have
Mm,
25 seconds. There are no timeouts. There's no offense and defense. You have to be able to serve. You have to be able to return. You have to be able to hit forehands, backhands. You have to deal with loss. When you lose, you cannot look at the guy and say, "Oh, it was the point guard that lost it. It was the left guard. It was the quarterback. It wasn't me. I played well today." No, no. You lost. Your
mm,
backhand broke down. You had the wrong strategy. You lost the ability to emotionally handle the situation in the moment. And then you think about the skill that it takes. It's not like you're just as a wide receiver, maybe you're working on, your routes and maybe a little bit of blocking. I know there's more that goes into it, but you have to master every shot in the game and your movement and your footwork, and the movement and the footwork is different and the spins and the speeds. I'm biased. I think tennis is like the hardest ultimate sport that requires insane amount of athleticism and skill.
yeah.
So it's like you could be you could run a 4.3 and never play football, but start at your senior year in high school and still make it to the pros. You
Right.
cannot pick up a tennis racket at 16 and play pro tennis. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
I just think tennis is the ultimate gladiator sport that requires every element to be the best version of yourself, to be your best you. It
Yeah.
it just pulls it out of you, and all of your weaknesses are exposed, and all of your strengths.
Do you feel like that gave you a greater sense of like ownership and responsibility like after playing tennis? Is like, I'm not going to be the type of person who blames other people, who blames other things. Is like, whether things happen good or bad, it's probably because of me.
If anything, it's hard because I'm the guy that actually blames myself for kind of like everything.
Right.
Like
Right.
it would be almost better if I could be like, yeah, like it was them. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I freaking did it and it's my fault and I lost. And so there is an element of extreme ownership if you're willing to be honest with yourself. Um, yeah, it's a hard sport. Um, it's a hard sport on many levels. And even, the payment and the compensation, you only get paid in pro tennis if you win. And even when you win, unless you're at the highest level, you're not getting paid that well. Whereas,
Yeah.
people want to talk about pressure. You hear these contracts, guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars and they say they have a lot of pressure. But if they get hurt and they go on the DL, they still get their check every 2 weeks.
Totally.
They get free food, they get free physical therapy, they have access to everything. They're with their buddies. When you lose in tennis and you're on the DL, no one's paying you. You're alone. No one's talking to you. And there's a lot of there's mental health challenges in every sport. But man, in tennis, there's a lot of messed up stuff going on because again,
Totally. I mean, like
your
tennis and golf.
identity. Your
Tennis and
identity
golf.
and self-esteem. Yeah, tennis and golf.
Tennis and golf are the only sports that are really, it's, I mean, like of the big sports, I feel like that are really like that. I'm sure there's a bunch of maybe like smaller sports that are not as noteworthy as like televised or whatnot that are maybe like that. But like you said, like contracts, that's a lot of pressure from the standpoint of living up to the expectation of the contract. But at the same time, it's like you pretty much know you're going to be getting a check if you have signed the contract, and it's not necessarily pay for performance like tennis and golf is. So that's crazy. But so on the flip side of things, have you ever felt like there's ever been a situation or a thing that you maybe were like less prepared for, or hadn't learned the lesson yet that team sports might teach you?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, the tennis con or the team concept. I grew up, my first love is basketball.
Uh,
It's my favorite sport. I'm coming clean. I like basketball more than tennis. I'm obsessed. I love the Denver Nuggets. I love Nikola Jokic. I am obsessed with basketball. I used to watch college basketball as a kid, Dickie Vitale on ESPN, the Big East against the ACC. Like, love it. And I played until my freshman year, but I was 5'4", 102 pounds, backup point guard. I had great skills. I had a little lefty runner. I could shoot the three, but the
yeah.
starting point guard on the freshman team was 5'10", 160, and he would elbow me and I had bruises all over me. But he couldn't shoot, but he was the starter.
Yeah.
And
You're a late
so
bloomer.
I was a late bloomer, man. And so I couldn't, so basketball I loved. And, thinking of college tennis, those 4 years, oh my gosh, like the best 4 years. When they say college is the best 4 years of life, imagine you're like, I get goosebumps thinking about it. We won two national titles. I happened to be the team captain my junior and senior year. You're getting on planes with your team, just like, it's like, you're in it together. You're looking down, you're playing one singles, but your buddy's playing two next to you, and you're high-fiving after a point, and there's the team and there's the coach. Like, you don't get that in pro tennis. Like, you're traveling alone unless you have a coach or a girlfriend with you, which a lot of us didn't when we didn't, playing, you're 150 in the world. So you miss out on that team connection. And it creates, for some people, including me, it creates a bit of a lone wolf mentality. It creates a bit of an introverted, I'll do it myself mentality. So I think that impacts relationships. I think
Mm.
it impacts communication. I happen to think I'm pretty skilled at communication, but given the choice to walk into a room with, 100 people and socializing, or going to do a tailgater, or going to play 18 holes of golf with my buddies, that connection piece, it's stunted for some people, where I usually choose, like, I'll just do shit on my own. I'll just do things on my own because I was so used to it from age 5
Mm.
33. Literally, you're on a court alone most of the time playing your sport. You're just not used to that camaraderie. And so I think we can be stunted. And that's also why we crave connection and we crave communication in many levels. But our default could be being lone wolves. At least that's for me.
Yeah.
So I think that is a hard, that you're missing as being able to coexist with a team. You're not used to, like, team building. It's just not
Yeah.
your normal thing, because it's like, I'll do it myself. I'll figure it out
Yeah.
myself. So I think there's an element of that does get stunted by focusing on an individual sport. You learn so many lessons around resilience and sticking with it and failure
Totally.
and bouncing back, but you lose out on the team building and the connection piece that is so valuable in business and in life.
Yeah. I mean, seems like I think you hit on probably what would be the most common, or the top benefit of individual sport and the top drawback of an individual sport, right? Is like it is on you, and so you learn the sense of ownership and responsibility, but at the same time, you might not learn how to ask for help, or not learn how to lean on somebody else for help with an individual sport. That's fascinating. I'm interested. So at the age of 25, around 1998, you had a couple of surgeries, and then because you've been a late bloomer and everything, at about age 30, that was when you hit the top 100 in the world in tennis. Was there anything that you did differently during those like 5 years when you're coming back from surgery and getting healed? Is there anything that you did differently from your tennis game, from your preparation to the physicality? Like, is there anything that you did differently that unlocked greater level of performance like later in your career around 30 than you unlocked earlier?
Yeah, 100%. And even before the injuries, where it started was that match with Michael Chang, where I played my first year on the tour. I skyrocketed from 800 in the world after graduating from Stanford to 150. I get a wild card in the US Open. I beat a guy 60 in the world in my first round of the US Open in 1997. It's my first main draw win in a slam. And now I'm playing Michael Chang in front of 24,000 people and millions watching on TV. John McEnroe's announcing the match. I mean, this is my moment. This is the biggest moment of my career. And I remember being so overtaken with rumination of thinking and anxiety. Like for 3 days leading up to that match, I was scared to play Michael Chang on Arthur Ashe Stadium, which, we're US Open's coming up at the time of this podcast, but like it's amazing how much as an athlete you can still get overcome by your thinking and your thoughts. And I share that to preface this performance thing is that I'm having all this stuff going on mentally and emotionally leading up to the match. And yet I still have to get on the court and perform in front of millions of people. And I get out there, and in the first four games, I'm playing tight as a drum. But somehow I held serve twice. So I get it to 2-all in the first set when I take my first deep breath. I literally take my first deep breath at 2-all. I felt like I was holding my breath. And for the next 15 minutes, I started kicking this guy's ass. Like I was the number two player in the world for 15 minutes, which shows like how much untapped potential all of us have if we can really find ourselves, find our zone, find our breath, be in alignment, remove all the doubts. And so I end up winning the first set on Chang, and the TV pans on me, and I got this shit ass grin on my face, and I'm smiling. And that's when I tell people the match ended. And the reason the match ended was because the dominant thought in my head in that moment was, Jeff, thank God you didn't embarrass yourself tonight. That was my ceiling. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't lose 6-0, 6-0 like Asimova did at the Wimbledon in the finals this year. Do not lose 6-1, 6-1, 6-1 in front of millions because the shame and the guilt would be too much. That's the thought. It's crazy, right? Because I'm serving 125. I'm the next great American. People on the outside see me and they're like, "Oh, he's got it together. He's extraordinary. He's an amazing athlete. He's this, he's that." But on the inside, I'm like little Jeff from Colorado who doesn't believe he can win and be there. And so coming to terms with kind of that thing led me to where I am today in the performance. And so getting to your question, I lose the match in 4 sets. I get off the court. The next day, I'm in a Midtown Manhattan hotel suite and I'm signing a contract with IMG. So IMG is like, you are the next it, or at least one of the next its. I'm signing with Pete Sampras' agent. And I thought my career was going to take off. And that's when the injuries hit 3 months later. I hurt my ankle. I hurt my knee. They were misdiagnosed. 2 years of like on the shelf. So you go from the top of the top, signing with agent after playing Chang, to you're living in your parents' basement, not making any money, no deals, no one talking to you. Your ranking is going like this. In other sports, if you get hurt for a year, 2 years, if you're Clay Thompson with an Achilles tail and you come back, you're starting by the first month or second month once you get back, and you're making 40 million a year. But in tennis, when you start over, you're at 800 in the world again, starting over. It is the most effed up system where you can be really good and go out for a year and you can't play. So what ended up happening was this doctor said, listen, man, you got this bone spur in your ankle. You have no ankle flexibility. You have no mobility in your ankle left at 24. You've got to change that. You got to start stretching. Well, I tend to be a little bit ADD. I get bored easily. I'm like, stretching's so boring. So I decided to go to my first yoga class at 24 in 1998. And that was the beginning. I went to a yoga class, started doing down dog. I started eating organic food. I started studying like, where do these limiting beliefs come from? And why am I choking in big matches? So I went through my mindset, my emotions. I started working with spiritual gurus. Like I was doing stuff back in the late 90s where people were like, this guy's lost it. He might go like to, the Himalayas next and meditate for a week. And I did weird shit. Like I went to Costa Rica for a week to stretch with these people, and it had nothing to do with tennis. So I was just this curious explorer, like trying to figure out my body, my mind, and my spirit at a young age. And that's what led me, I tried a lot of different diets. I tried stupid diets in the middle of tournaments. I can tell you about that if we have time at some point. I did all the stretching. I did all the different weightlifting. I tried all the coaches. And so from 24 years old to 30 to 33, that was the quest. Other guys were thinking like, if I get to the top 10 in the world and I make a couple million in tennis, that's great. I was actually waking up going, I just want to learn all this stuff. Yes, I
Yeah.
wanted to be top 20 in the world. But what I realize now is that I love the journey of learning all of this more than I
Sure.
loved hitting forehands and backhands. It was like pro tennis was like the distraction or the excuse that I had to learn. And then not
Right.
in my 30s, 40s, and now 50s, guess what I get to do now? I get to teach all this stuff. I get to share the wisdom. I get to do keynotes. I get to do workshops. I get to coach one-on-one at a deep level because of that weird, crazy performance journey I went on. But that's how I broke the top 100 by doing all these things, finding what works. And then I met a coach that really helped me in my late 20s. He was very quirky. He called me the Seagull and for a specific reason. But he got me to think outside the box even more. He got me to hit something called the buggy whip forehand. He showed me low volleys. He got me to visualize more instead of be in my head. He got me to play with my heart. And so I think it's just a combination of my own journey and then having this really quirky guide, like the hero's journey, and then you have
Yeah,
your
of course.
you have this Yoda that's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like leading you in a direction, and all of this kind of happened, and that's what allowed me to break through. But saying all that, I still left a lot on the table. So it's like this really cool journey, but also like messed up a lot too.
Yeah. Well, let's go into this when you were playing Michael Chang in the U.S. Open. You said that before you started, you waited 4 games until you took your first deep breath, and then in your psychology, you thought after the first set, like, thank God I didn't embarrass myself. When you started having more success in your late 20s, approaching 30, approaching the top 100, what did the internal dialogue sound like inside of your brain when things were going good and when things were going bad? Like, what differently did you do inside of your head so that your thought patterns were different?
Sure. So if I'd be lying to you if I told you that I totally licked that and all of a sudden believed in myself in my late 20s. I think even now at 51 years old, I'm still looking at the patterns of thinking I have now that I had 25 years ago. Like you can't run from your stuff, right? You have to like know who you are, know what's holding you back and start to unpack it. But I think the one big shift mentally and emotionally was I had more awareness that I could shift my thoughts in the moment. Like when I was anxious against Chang, I identified with my thoughts as like, that's who I am. But as I started studying meditation and breath work and our thoughts, realizing I'm not my thoughts and that I could actually change them, I was able to do a better job of that. And so one of the things that I would do is there's this concept called the alter ego effect. Todd Herman kind of made it popular, but it's been around for thousands of years. But kind of like modeling, you can step into a different character, like a superhero. And a lot of great athletes and great performers do that. And so I remember there would be times when I knew I was too amped up and I needed to kind of zen out and calm down. So like I would channel more of a calmer approach.
Mm,
But for me, I tended to be more on the calmer side on the court. There were times when I needed to swear under my breath and become a killer like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Now, I'll be the first to say one of the reasons I only got to 100 in the world, I wasn't a killer.
mm,
I'm not a killer. I have to channel that. Kobe
yeah,
Bryant, the Black Mamba, killer.
yeah,
Michael Jordan, killer. LeBron James, not a killer. Okay. Whatever he's achieved in his life, you can see it in certain athletes. You can see it in their eyes, right? There's a difference. And if you're a killer, it comes at a cost too.
yeah,
There's a shadow side, there's a dark side. And I was into this really deep spiritual pursuit. So I was conflicted. Like, if I'm a killer, then I'm
yeah,
going to lose this like peaceful side of me. I don't want to be like Michael Jordan. And so um, I really wrestled with that, but there were moments in time when I'd get on the court and I would start swearing under my breath, like I am going to effing kill this guy. I
yeah,
had to do that. I had to channel that. And so That helped me make some breakthroughs.
Well, totally. And I'm just interrupt right there because I think it's relevant, especially, I don't know if you watch golf at all, but the Open Championship just happened. Scotty Scheffler is without a doubt the best player in the world right now, and he is kind of one of the first type of goats, type of Mount Rushmore type athletes who is the furthest from that killer outwardly. Like you said, LeBron James is not like the killer that maybe Michael Jordan or Kobe or maybe like Tom Brady is, but he's definitely more of has a greater killer mentality than somebody like Scotty Scheffler. So it's kind of the first time that we're seeing somebody who doesn't have that killer mentality, who is at the absolute top of their game, top of their sport for an extended period of time. Like, how would you, and just like with your awareness and just kind of observing it right now, like how would you explain how somebody who seemingly has very little killer mentality is able to perform at that high of a level?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was so intrigued by his interview when he was like, here I am winning these tournaments and it lasts for 2 minutes. I'm not
Yeah,
fulfilled. Like, this is not fulfilling. I don't even know what to do with this. And he's saying this before he wins the tournament.
I
So it's
know.
to that he's able to articulate what's going on inside of him and still focus on his process and compete. And you get the sense someone like him, let's just say he's evolved enough and self-aware enough to know that he doesn't have to be a killer to win or have that killer mentality. He can focus on his process, and that allows him to be the best version of himself.
Yeah,
Um, I think in 2025, it's a little different than in the 1990s and 2000s, where my guy Nikola Jokic is so unassuming, acts
yeah,
like he doesn't like basketball, right? Like he's like, I just want to go be with my horses. But then I start hearing stuff like when the game is over, who's the first guy in the gym lifting?
yeah.
Who's the guy that his teammates saying he prepares more than anyone? Who's the guy watching film at night? So maybe Scotty Scheffler and Nikola Jokic, they're more killers than we realize, but
Totally.
they understand there's a part of them that's like a family man and they're into the process, but they got to have something inside of them that propels them to want to compete and win. It's just different than Jordan and I would say more evolved than Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, totally. And almost what I'm thinking when you're saying that is like they have the killer mentality when it comes to their preparation. They might not have the killer mentality with regards to like the ultimate result. That just ends up being a byproduct because of their killer mentality with their preparation. And again, I think like one of the things that I think is really important when it comes to aiming at the best possible goal in life. It's the best possible goal is not necessarily to be the best person at what you do. It's just to be the best version of yourself at what you do. Right? It's not like just a comparing against everybody else who stacked up against you and I want to be the better than everybody else. It's just like just be the best version of yourself, and if that turns out to be the best of anybody else, then great. And so I feel like their mentality is less I care about being better than all of you, more I care about being better as the best version of myself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that kind of inner approach of being the best version of yourself and understanding how that works for you. And as you're talking, I'm thinking again, Jordan and Kobe were hard drivers in the 90s and the 2000s. They were all over their teammates. I don't
Yeah.
think it works now. I think we're kind of
Mm,
evolved as a society or as a, like, it's just not going to work where everyone wants to play for Nikola Jokic. Probably everyone wants to be around Scotty Scheffler. You think of even Tiger Woods, he was a killer. And if you look at his stats and you compare it to Scheffler, I saw the numbers. Everyone thinks Scheffler is amazing, and he is. But in one stage, in an 18-month stage, I think Tiger won 65% of the tournaments he played in. He had doubled the majors that Scheffler had made. But guess what? He petered out.
mm,
He
yeah.
wasn't able to sustain it with longevity. Same with Jordan. He had a 3-year run and he had to freaking retire to like start over again.
Yeah.
So in order to have longevity, in order to have happiness, fulfillment, you probably need to take more of the Nikola Jokic, Scotty Scheffler approach if you want to have a long, sustaining career with without a lot of drama, and you want to just be solid with who you are, and maybe
Yeah.
it's not going to end up in breaking all the records, but it's still going to be that best you that you're talking about. And I think these guys know themselves, right? They really know themselves, and they clearly have people around them that help them stay grounded too.
Yeah, I think it's having perspective that there's just other areas of your life that are important as well. Not and again, not to like this is not like faulting someone like Jordan or Kobe or Tiger. Like they are the goats at their sports, and they reached a level of success that most people could just dream of. But it's like off the court, there were more issues than somebody like a Scotty Scheffler or Nikola Jokic. Yeah, what cost? It's like Tom Brady, absolute goat. Is ends up being divorced. Anyways, I think this is it's a fascinating conversation to think about the different mentalities that lead to success because Scotty Scheffler and Nikola Jokic are just examples and evidence that it doesn't have to be done one particular way. One thing that's fascinating to me about tennis, well, it's really all sports, but tennis, it seems like the momentum can change on a dime. 1 point for whatever reason can sometimes change the feel of the match. And there are often times I know I don't watch a ton of tennis, but I watch enough to know after some matches, you can oftentimes go back to a point in the match and be like, it was that point where it switched. What from tennis have you learned about keeping momentum on your side, but also when momentum's not on your side, trying to flip it?
Sure. Before I answer that, there's one more thing I want to share about that last
Totally.
bit that we chatted about, and it was the conflict I had around winning was that I would see guys that were top 10 or 20 in the world that were miserable.
Yeah.
And so again, at what cost? I think part of the reasons I sabotaged my career at times was like I could see people that were unhappy at the top of the game. There are guys right now that are and gals that are top 10 in the world in pro tennis that are miserable, that are having mental health issues and depressed. And I was like, I am not going to go there. And so I think I intuitively knew like if I want to be happy, I've got to work on myself so that I don't end up chasing this thing and then I get there and I'm miserable. Just like a guy who's a billionaire who wakes up one day, built these companies and real estate and all the things, and his wife doesn't like him and his kids don't like him and he's not connected to himself and he's drinking too much. Like, at what cost, right? And so I think that's a really important thing for all of us to be aware of is like, at what cost are we chasing this success? The best you involves, for me, it's a level of success, but it's service, it's fulfillment, it's happiness. And that's what Scheffler's saying. He's like, I'm winning majors, but that doesn't create fulfillment for me. So, okay, I wanted to touch on that. Let's get to your question around the momentum. What other sport is there no clock?
Mm,
Golf, there's no clock. But with golf, if you if you shoot three bogeys to start, you're probably not catching the field. But in tennis, if you're down 6-0, 5-0, 40 love, you can still come back and win.
yeah.
And so with momentum, you think of like Carlos Alcaraz and Sinner at the French Open. Sinner had match point. I think he was up 40 love serving. Lost that game. Momentum changes. So in tennis, there's no time, and you can always come back. And in other sports, if you're down in football, if you're down 30 points in the fourth, you're not coming back.
So do you think that the fact that you can always come back creates a level of belief in the person who's down that they can flip the momentum, and so that ends up causing momentum shifts?
Yeah, that helps. You never know. You never know. I think that, I mean, I don't know if tennis is different than other sports in this respect, but like there's this, there's just this chess match of like figuring out what you do really well and then also looking at where you can expose the other guy and then
Right.
you're playing over an hour or 2 hours and it's just evolving like it's got a life of its own, a story of its own unfolding, and there's always an opportunity to find that edge at any moment to turn things around.
Right.
And you also know that guy could get hurt, could start cramping up. Like you don't know. And you obviously have to stay emotionally regulated and you have to keep your mind intact to be able to search for answers, to find answers, to try different things, to unveil it. But momentum is very important in tennis. I don't know the exact stats, but it's very difficult. I remember I was working with a guy who did all the stats around momentum. It's very difficult to win 2 points in a row in tennis and really difficult to win 3 points in a row. So what ends
Mm.
up happening is if you win 2 points in a row, you tend to relax a little bit because you
Mm.
have a perception that you're further ahead than you are. And then the
Yeah.
other person, their back is against the wall. And so they're going to play better on that third point. And
Mm.
what ends up happening around momentum is you trying to, if you can string points together, you're building that momentum over time. But it's really hard. Like if you play like baseline games or serve games with people and you actually, instead of keeping normal score and you just chart how many times you win 2 points in a row or 3 points in a row or even 4 points in a row, the stats, they're very low to win consecutive points in a row. And so momentum is a big deal in tennis.
Yeah, so it almost feels like if I'm thinking, okay, how do I keep momentum on my side? It's I have to find a way to channel the energy of my back is still against the wall. I haven't taken a huge lead or anything like that. And then on the flip side, it's like if momentum is momentum, if I'm losing momentum, it's not on my side right now. I need to really believe that I can still win, or else I'm not going to have that sense of urgency that my back is against the wall because I just kind of have lost hope and lost belief. So it's like if you are lost momentum, whether you're playing a sport or you're lost momentum in life, it's like you need to find a way to have a sense of hope, a sense of belief of wherever it is that you're trying to go, and then generate this back against the wall mentality to get you to go, go, go so that you can flip the momentum or keep.
I heard this with a successful businessman. I think it was Bill Ackman, hedge fund guy in New York. It might be him, might be someone else, but going through a really tough time, lost millions of dollars, maybe went through a divorce. And I remember him saying, like, when you're like in the depths and it's really hard and it's bad, you just have to figure out a way to stack these little wins. And I
Yeah.
look at it with tennis, like, if you're down 40 love in a game, the chances are you're not going to come back to win that particular game. But if you win that first point and you get it to 40-15, you're still in the game. And if you win the next point, it's 40-30. Okay. And then if you get it back to deuce, now the momentum's like, oh shit, I'm in
Yeah.
deuce now. Now I've got momentum on my side. And that's how quickly Sinner and Alcaraz goes from 40 love match point, 1 point away from winning the French Open to it gets back to deuce. Now the guy who got back to deuce is feeling like I got a shot now. But it started with that first point. You think about basketball. I mean, all the runs in the NBA playoffs. You got teams that get up by like 20 points and it's the third quarter. And you think there's no way they're coming back. But
Yeah.
what do they always talk about? We just got to get one stop. We just got to get one stop. We get one stop and then we hit a three. Okay, let's go get one more stop. And then you hit a two. And then you get it, next thing you know, it's cut to 12.
It's almost like momentum equals hope plus progress. And you have more hope when you start to make progress, right? So they're like they feed off of each other, hope and progress. But at the same time, those are the two kind of components that allow momentum to be generated in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. Momentum is fascinating to me. And I think it's something I should bring out now that we're having this conversation more in my coaching and my speaking of like the power of momentum. We talk a lot about stacking little wins in life, right?
Yeah.
Every day, let's find those wins. You asked me earlier, what made you smile today? Like those are the wins that we can forget about when we get into the day-to-day grind of life. Like, yeah, what made you smile? Where did you win? Like, I got my feet in the grass today. Like, let's celebrate that as a win that actually helps me be my best you when sometimes we just take things like that for granted. So you got me thinking around momentum. Like, how do we bring momentum into our lives and use that term beyond just you hear people say, what were your wins today? I like this idea of like, where did you create momentum today?
Yeah. Well, and the way I'm also thinking about it from the sense of hope and progress, small wins, but you also hope and progress kind of have a unassumed prerequisite, which is like a vision or a goal. Because when you have hope, it's hope for something. When you have progress towards something. And so you kind of need to know your vision or your goal beforehand to maximize the momentum that you get from the progress that is potentially experienced. And so I think it's like, if you feel like you don't have momentum and then you need to think like, okay, where the hell am I trying to go? And then, but you need to pick a place where you have a hope and belief that you can get there, and then start stacking the small wins. And that's where momentum starts to really be generated.
Yeah, I agree. And then as you're talking, I was thinking, okay, what's the difference? And I'm putting myself when I was down 40 love, or, if I'm serving at love 40 versus returning at 40 love, like if I'm down love 40 serving, I have a big serve. So I'm like, I just need to hit a couple big serves and I'm back in this game. That's different than if they're serving at 40 love and I'm returning. I'm like, oh, how am I going to win 3 points? But I was thinking hope, belief, and faith. And I don't know, like, at what point does it go from hope to belief to faith that it's going to work out? And I almost think if you're down 40 love, you're kind of like, well, I hope I can come back. Maybe you have some belief, but when you start like winning and get some progress, then that hope maybe shifts into more belief, and then the belief becomes faith. Like, I don't know, there's a whole spectrum there to play with.
So one of the questions I'm interested is, I actually just had a best you retreat this past weekend at the time of recording this, which was awesome. And one of the people asked me, we were talking about goals and pursuing goals and attacking goals and putting a lot of effort. And the person asked me, when do you know when it's time to give up? When do you know when it's time to stop? And in preparing for this interview, I thought about that question for you. When you were at 30, you hit the top 100. I know it ended up being a few years later when you officially retired. How did you think about, when is it time to stop? When is it time to give this up and move on?
We're going to open up the kimono right now. Man, like, you break the top 100 at 30. And when I did it, I had plantar fascia. I had just won a tournament in Mexico, got me to 100 in the world, got me main draw into Wimbledon. First time I'd ever been main draw without qualifying. Like, this is the pinnacle. And I had plantar fasciitis in both feet. Like, I couldn't even celebrate being top 100 because I was freaking hurt again. The one chance I had to break through, I had injuries that whole summer when I was main draw in all these tournaments. And then the next couple of years, it was like rankings dropping, hard to bounce back. And I get to 30, 33 years old, and I cried 3 times in the month leading up to my last professional tennis match. And the reason I cried 3 times is because I had a feeling it was ending and I didn't know how to give up. I did not know what to do. I cried with an ex-girlfriend. I cried knowing my father was going to watch me for the last time. And then I cried a few weeks after that when my coach that helped me break the top 100 came to watch me play. And it was almost like this feeling that my head and my heart, and like, my head wanted to keep pushing. Like, you can do this. You can get back to the top 100 again, blah, blah, blah. And my heart was like, dude, you are done. Like, you are cooked. You've been doing this since you're 4 years old. You're 33, 34 now. You don't want to get on planes anymore. You're traveling alone. You're 250 in the world now. You're trying to get back. Um, it was hard because if you're not listening, if your head and your heart are not aligned, and this is something that I teach again in my coaching and workshops, the Own Your Zone framework, is like, you have to know your head and heart have to be aligned with the thing you're doing. So you said, like, how do you know when to quit? When your head and your heart are not aligned, you got to take a serious look in the mirror around what you're doing and what your purpose is. And so that actually resulted in me deciding to keep going. My head said keep going. My heart knew I was done. I did not listen to my heart. I listened to my head, and then within a week, I say I manifested a health condition. My physical mental health started going like this because I was not listening to my soul. I wasn't listening to my heart. And I got really sick and I couldn't play anymore. So my body was like, dude, you're not going to listen? We're going to create something for you. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And so I never played another pro match, and I was in limbo because I didn't know how to quit. You talk about transition from pro tennis to the real life. I'm 33 years old. I've never had a real job. Tough, really, really tough. And what ended up happening was I had a younger brother that was struggling with mental health and addiction. And I actually walked into his room the morning, December 30th, 2007, and he was passed out on the floor and he was overdosing from drugs. And that was the event that got me to quit. Otherwise, I don't know how to quit, man. And that's a tough thing, not to be afraid and to play the game of life from fear. But when I saw my brother lying there, it was almost like, one, I knew I had to do something to help him. But two, it was kind of my out. It was like, well, my brother's struggling, so now I have an excuse to quit. And it's not like, oh, he just stopped. And that changed the trajectory of my life. That was another defining moment in my life. My brother, overdosing, I put him in rehab, paid for rehab, moved back home, started coaching. And in the first month of coaching, I realized this is actually what I was meant to do. I was meant to be a coach. I thought I was supposed to be a pro tennis player, but deep down, I was like, oh my gosh, everything that I've learned in my life, I get to now share with others. And I got to do it on a tennis court first before I stepped off of the court to do all this. But that was powerful to be able to go on a journey with my brother, to have that event, that traumatic event happen, and then to find myself coaching other people and realizing all of that work, all the blood, sweat, and tears was for that, for to be able to be a coach.
Yeah, man. Well, what a great way to wrap this up. Your head and your heart have to be aligned, and I'm glad that something finally got those things at least more closely aligned, so that the decision could have finally been made. But this has been awesome, Jeff. You guys need to make sure you go follow Jeff on Instagram at Jeff Salzenstein. We'll make sure we have it linked up in the show notes and whatnot. You can go to his website, jeffsalzenstein.com as well. Is there any last things you want to share about maybe where people can find you, what you're working on, or just kind of any kind of final thoughts as we finish up here?
Well, my big why, we opened the loop on my brother's story. I'm not going to give away the ending, but know that part of my why is to be a part of the solution to helping mental health challenges and addiction. That's a big why. Why I get on stages, why I work with organizations, why I work with leaders. The Own Your Zone framework helps people be the best you, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Everything I learned in sport, everything I learned in tennis, I'm bringing it to the leadership world. I'm so passionate about this work. I want to be, a beacon of light and to share this knowledge. And so obviously whoever's listening to this, if they resonated with my stories, people connect to me or hire me, one of the reasons they're like, it's because you were in it. Like you played pro sports at the highest level and you are the real deal in terms of coaching and leading, and you're doing everything you can to lead and live this way. And so I love what you're doing with your podcast, being the best you. It totally resonates with me. It's not an accident that we are here today because of Josh, and so grateful to be able to share this time with you.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Y'all make sure if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify that you hit the follow button so you get notified when future episodes come out. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe down below. Make sure you go follow Jeff at Jeff Salzenstein on Instagram. It's down there in the description of the show notes. But I really appreciate you guys spending the time with us today. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And Jeff, appreciate you, man.
Thank you.